Hello and welcome back to my favorite crafty things of 2017. This is Gina from McGuire, and today I am covering crafting tools. This will cover everything that I use for crafting, including things for stamping and die cutting. Now, keep in mind, there are many great crafting tools out there. I just am sharing with you the ones that I seem to reach for the most and that I've had the most luck with. In some cases, I'll give you a few different options based on what your particular needs are. And I warn you, this is a super long video because there's a lot to include, and I wanted to explain each tool a bit. Okay, so let's start with just some basic tools. These are things that I find myself reaching for often. The first one is the pen blades. Now, the pen blades are craft knives that I like for a few reasons. There are 3 in a pack, and I like that they each have a different type of tip. But I'll be honest, I just use them interchangeably. I just think they're nice quality, and I like that I don't have to keep an open knife on my desk. All you have to do is press the slider down on the top to get the blade to come out, and then push the button on the side to get the blade to retract in. I use these for both cutting and for kind of lifting things up with the tip. Next, I wanted to cover a few scissors. The first is the Tim Holtz Mini Snips. Now, the Tim Holtz Mini Snips are great because they cut through pretty much anything like butter. These are the scissors that we use around the house, and I even use them for yard work. He originally came out with a medium size, then he came out with large, and these are the minis. I like the handy size of the mini. They have soft grips so your hands don't get tired, and it has an anti-stick coating so you don't have to worry about a buildup on the blades. They really do cut a lot of things very nicely, so they are very handy to have in your craft room. Now, whenever I need to do fussy cutting, I find myself reaching most for the Fiskars Titanium Micro Tip Scissors. Now, I think this is an older version of the scissors here. I'll link to the newer version. I couldn't find my new ones. I believe Lila must have hijacked them. But these are great because they're super fine tip, titanium blade, and then it has this little closure snap on it. They also have this spring in the handle so your hands don't get tired at all doing cutting. The fine tip is excellent for fussy cutting. I have used different versions of this same scissor for many, many years, and I will always like them. I just think they're fantastic quality and perfect for the quick cutting of paper. Next, we have the T-Ruler. Now, talk about bang for your buck. This little guy I use all the time, and he's only a few bucks. I can't recommend enough having one of these in your craft room. Now, you can use it to measure things, to find the center point, or different techniques. All you have to do is put the T edge up against one edge of your cardstock, and then you know you will be forming a straight line. But what I use this T-Ruler for the most is making sure I do sentiments straight. So say I stamp a little sentiment strip and I want to make sure it's straight on my card. All I have to do is line the T edge up with the side of my card, and then I can make sure that my sentiment is straight. If you don't have a T-Ruler, I recommend getting one. Okay, the next thing I wanted to recommend is this large work surface that I work on. It's a black mat with white grid lines, and I find that it cleans up quite nicely. I use those grid lines very often to make sure things are straight. Now, this is what the pad looks like. It's 24 inches by 36 inches. It is a big guy, and I just have him on my work surface. It's bigger than I need, so I can push painted projects and things out of the way while they dry, and I don't have to worry about messing up my desk. So I do recommend having something like this to work on, and it's not that expensive. Okay, next is the Tonic Easy Clean Mat. If you want a little sheet that you can work on that's easy to clean up, I recommend this sheet. What's nice about it is the back side of it actually is sticky, so it stays in place on your work surface and doesn't move around. I like that it's bright white, so you can be sure you've cleaned it before moving on to the next project. So I normally work on the black gridded pad because that way I can see things and line them up. But when I'm doing something messy like watercolor or alcohol inks, I'll break out this Easy Clean Mat and make sure that I work on that instead. You may not need both surfaces, but I find that they're handy for me. You might just want to think about how you craft and decide which is better for you. I do know that this Easy Clean Mat from Tonic is heat resistant, so you don't have to worry about that. However, you don't want to cut on it or you'll cut right through the pad. Okay, so it also comes in this little container that you can store it in. Really handy. Really like this tool, and I find it doesn't get crinkled very easy at all. The next product I really like to use for crafting is the cutting board. Now, years ago, I was painting something and I really wanted to be able to pick it up and set it aside for a while. So I decided to go upstairs and grab this cutting board. And it never quite made it back to my kitchen. And since then, I've bought a couple more to use in my craft room. This is really handy because I can tape paper to it, paint on it, and while it's wet, I can set it aside. I can also put things on it and heat emboss on it. Anything I want to take and move and set aside, or anything I want to really apply a lot of heat to. So you've probably seen this cutting board in a lot of my videos. Now you could use any kind of board. I just happen to like that this is really sturdy and has that handle so I can quickly grab it and move it. Next we have the Scor Buddy. Now, I'll be honest, I've had the Scor Buddy for a long time, but I only recently fell back in love with him. I really like how easy it is to do scoring with this, and I've done a few technique videos showing how you can use scoring as accents on cards. You can also use the scoring tool simply for scoring your note cards. Now, it does come with a scoring tool up here on the top, but I don't usually use that one. That's because I have a long time loyalty to the Teflon bone folder. Now, the Teflon bone folder is pricey, I'll tell you that. But anybody who's ever used one will tell you that it's definitely worth the investment. It doesn't leave marks on your paper and it scores beautifully. I know it seems kind of silly to think that a Teflon bone folder could make that big of a difference, but it really does. You just got to trust me on it. Now, when I want to score a note card, I use the Teflon bone folder. This is an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. I just score at the 5.5 inch line. Now, this is a mini scoreboard, so I have to rotate it and score it again from the other direction. Now I can just fold this in half, use the other end of the Teflon bone folder to really form that crease. And then I just cut this in half down the center, and I have two 4.25 by 5.5 inch top folding note cards. That just happens to be what I use the most. You can also score and cut in the other direction to create a side folding note card. So you get two note cards for one piece of cardstock, and that Teflon bone folder really makes a difference in getting a nice crease at the top without any tearing. Okay, next up we have the Tombow Monosand Eraser. Now there are two different ones. One of these has the sander on both ends, the other has the sander on one end, and then an eraser on the other. Really doesn't matter which one of these you use, but this is great for erasing any ink boo-boos on your project. Now, if you stamp a solid image where you don't want it, you can't really erase that, but say you get a fingerprint somewhere, and you want to erase that, this will definitely do the job. So here I'm just going to create a little accident. So say I get a little fingerprint over here. So I have a little bit of pool ink at the top there of my white cardstock. What you'll want to do is make sure it's dry before you start doing this. So I'm just going to heat set it, make sure it's dry. It should be dry since it's a dye ink, but I just want to be sure. Now I can use the sand eraser just to kind of sand back and forth in all directions. And what happens is you basically are sanding the top layer of the paper, not too much that it's noticeable. You can use an eraser to smooth that if you feel you need to, but I usually don't worry about that. I usually just use the sander, and then nobody will ever know that mistake was there. It really is not noticeable at all. So I definitely recommend this little tool. It's inexpensive, and I use it on almost every card because I tend to make little errors a lot. The next inexpensive tool that I use often is this adhesive eraser. So say you get some adhesive somewhere where you don't want it. All you have to do is rub it away with this eraser. Here I'm going to show you. I have one of my favorite tape runners here, and say I change my mind, I can just use this to remove the adhesive. But where it really is handy is say you have a little strip like this and you put adhesive on the back. Sometimes the adhesive kind of sticks out the sides too. All you have to do is take your adhesive eraser and rub it along that edge, and nobody will ever notice that adhesive. It just rubs it right away. So this is handy to have, and if you get adhesive on your work surface, you can use this to erase it. And of course, this works with dry adhesives. Now, one tool that I think is definitely worth the investment, and I've been saying so for many, many years, is the Hero Arts heat gun. This is the bad boy of heat guns. This guy can heat like none other. It gets super hot very quick. so you have very little warping when you do heat embossing. I use this tool for all kinds of things in my craft room. I don't have to worry about it much because it is such a high quality product. Anybody who's ever used this will probably agree with me that it makes a big difference in getting great results with heat embossing. It is more expensive than most heat guns, but if you find yourself heat embossing often, it is definitely worth it. Now, speaking of heat embossing, I think it's very important to use some sort of anti-static powder tool before doing heat embossing. This makes a big difference in getting a nice crisp heat embossed result. Now, I've lately been using this embossing magic bag. All you do is kind of rub it around your paper or tap it on your paper, and it creates an anti-static environment. I used to use a different tool, but it smelled like baby powder, and I try to avoid baby powder. So this one has really worked well for me lately, and it's very inexpensive. This little guy will last you for a very long time. All you have to do again is just pounce it on your paper. Also, if you create something where there's maybe some adhesive on the back that you don't want to be sticky anymore, you can just tap this on it to kind of cover up that adhesive stick. Now, for cleaning up, one of the things that I use a lot is coffee filters. Coffee filters are very inexpensive, and they're great for kind of containing things on your desk. One way I use this often is for heat embossing. So say I'm using an embossing powder, I can pour it over this. Then I can easily funnel it to pour it back into the bottle. I also do this for glitter, or if I'm just working with little pieces. I find that I can easily tap out anything that kind of ends up in it so that I can reuse the coffee filters a few times. So if you're a coffee drinker, go grab some of the filters and you can use that in your craft room. Now, I am a big fan of Swiffer dusting cloths, especially in the craft room. Now, these are the cloths that people use to clean their hardwood floors or to do dusting. Now, I don't believe that any of us should be wasting our time with cleaning our house. Instead, we should be crafting, right? So, bring those Swiffer dusting cloths into your craft room. They are great for cleaning up things like glitter and embossing powder. I know some people don't like the mess of, say, glitter, but this makes it much more bearable. I actually like to cut my dusting cloths into little pieces because a little piece goes a long way. You can either cut it with your scissors or with your trimmer. Now, to demonstrate, I poured a bunch of embossing powder on my table. I'm going to take one of those tiny little Swiffer pieces and I just go back and forth and it grabs all of that embossing powder. You can see it's very contained, it won't fall out, and I can probably use this for a few other times also. So these really do go a long way. Works incredible with glitter too. Another great thing for cleaning up is the microfiber cloth. Now, I use these every time I craft. I use these to wipe off my stamps, to clean off my desk, to even pick up little pieces of die cuts because it grabs onto things nicely. And then all I have to do is throw it in my washing machine and wash it and use it again. I have a bunch of these. This one happens to be a new one. But if you've seen my videos, you know that my microfiber cloths are usually very well loved and have lots of ink on them. But they're easy enough to wash and use over and over again. Also, they're very inexpensive. Next, I'd like to introduce you to the tool that is most used in my craft room, and this is the Handvac. This pivot Handvac is small, so I can have it on a shelf in my craft room, and I rest it on the charger so it's always charging. It's got a little stand for it. Now, this one I've been using for a long time. I'll link to a couple different versions of it. I have one of these in my kitchen also. But basically, you just push the button and it swings open, and then you can easily just suck up any little bits that are around your craft room. I often will just clean off my desk by using this. I'll clean up all the little bits of die cutting on the floor using this. I use this every time I'm in my craft room. You can easily open the side to empty it out. There are filters you can replace over time, but I tell you, this guy, he is the best in the craft room. I do like the kind that folds up, so it doesn't take up much room. And again, I'll link to 2 versions that I've tried. Okay, next I have the bead tray and the jewel picker. Lately, I've been putting a lot of gems and sequins onto my cards, and I find these 2 tools are very handy to have. I pour my little sequins or gems into the bead tray, and it helps to keep it contained on my table. Then I use the jewel picker, and all you have to do is press the tip onto your little gem. It picks it up, and then you drop it into your little dots of adhesive. Now, there are two ends to this. I just use whatever end I happen to grab first, and it just has a little bit of tackiness to it that it will pick up the gem and put it down. If yours starts to lose stick, just run it under water and it should be good again. But I find it's very handy when you're trying to place things into small areas. You could also use tweezers, but this definitely grabs those gems much better and they don't go flying across the room. Now, the advantage of the bead tray is I can easily pour all the leftover gems back into the container and keep everything nice and tidy. Now, these two may not be must-have tools, however, they're inexpensive and make life easy. Okay, next is the Holtz Sprayer. I've used a lot of sprayers over the years, but this is the one that I've settled on lately. It has a little lock on the side. You just push this little button on the side and it'll either lock it or unlock it, so you don't have to worry about it dripping if you take it on the go. Now, this is nice because it has that big little handle, the little trigger. If you press it only a little bit, splatters come out. If you press it all the way, you get a fine mist. And that's great because you can use it in different ways. So if I only press it a tiny bit, I get these big splatters. I put down some Distress Oxide ink there so you can see the reaction that you get and the size splatters that I'm getting. So those I get by just barely pressing it. Now, if I want to have a full mist, I just press it completely and I get a nice full mist. It's just handy to have because I can use it in many different ways. Okay, next up we have the ink blending tool. Now, if you plan to do any inking with any type of inks, this is a great tool to have. You buy the handle, and there's actually 2 handles in the pack, and then you can also buy replacement foams. So really you only need the 2 handles, and then just need a different replacement foam for different types of inks. So here you can see I'm using it with some Distress Oxide ink, and I can easily apply color. Now, the ink blending tool used to come in a rectangle size, which it still does, but I find that this round mini ink blending tool is much easier to work with. I recommend this with any type of inks that you want to do any kind of blending with. I know a lot of people put a little piece of Velcro on the bottom of their ink pad and keep the foam there so that they can easily find it when they need to use that color again. Now, I happen to have a bunch of ink blending tools because I use them so much, but you can definitely use the same one for different types of inks. Now, lately I've been testing out different ink sponges. I've tried inexpensive makeup applicators, a bunch of different blending sponges. The ones that I found work the best by far are the Tonic blending sponges. There are a few in a pack, and what you'll notice is the bottom of this is very round. So you can ink it up and apply ink without having to worry about harsh lines. It's very easy to use, very soft, and you can wash it and reuse it again. But what I do is I just keep 1 per color family per ink. So if anytime I use, say, blue oxide inks, I just use this tool here. You can kind of rub off the ink on scrap paper if you want to, but again, these are washable. I'll be showing these in future videos. I've been playing with them a lot off screen and I've been really happy with the results. Okay, the next tools I want to share are for masking. I really like full sticky Post-it notes for masking. Now, these Post-it notes are different than most because the entire back of it has that Post-it stick to it. So what I like is I can stamp an image on this and actually grab like 3 of these at a time. Then when I either die cut or hand cut that shape out, I end up with 3 masks that are perfect for that particular stamped image. Now, this is handy when you're doing like multiple cards, when you need to use a mask several times, because as you know, sometimes the mask gets saturated with ink and it can bleed through. So being able to cut a bunch of masks at once is really handy. But regardless, they're inexpensive and great for quick masking. Another product that's good for masking or for masking off areas of a card is the Post-it tape. Now, this has a ton of tape on it. This will last you for a long time. It's 2 inches wide. You can stamp on this, cut it out, or die cut it and have a quick mask. Or you can mask off large areas on your card. Again, I've had this roll for quite a while, so you can see it does last for quite some time. Now, for masking of larger areas, you need a bigger piece of masking paper. I've tried many masking papers over the years and they all work quite well, But recently a blog reader told me about a less expensive option, and that is the Avery removable adhesive sheets. So these are from like an office supply store, and they have the same kind of stickiness to the back of it like most masking papers do. 8.5 by 11 sheets. There's 25 in a pack, so this will last you for quite some time. I've been using them recently and I'm very pleased with the results, and actually have a video coming very soon showing that. I do plan to take a few of these sheets and cut them in half in both directions, so I end up with 4.25 by 5.5 inch masked pieces. That way they're the perfect size for my card making, but you can also keep them as full sheets if you prefer. Okay, next let's cover paper trimmers. Now I'm actually going to show you a few options because I am a firm believer that everybody needs something different out of a paper trimmer. And also different people use different paper trimmers in different ways. So I'm going to share with you a few options of some good trimmers that I found, and maybe it will help you decide which one might be best for your needs. Now the trimmer that I probably reach for the most lately is the Tim Holtz trimmer. I find that this guy cuts like butter, and I can even cut through multiple sheets of paper. I like that it is smaller. I don't like a giant trimmer that takes up a lot of room on my desk because I bring my trimmer to my work surface, and generally I have such a mess on my table that a big trimmer doesn't work. This is a great size, and I found the quality to be great. There's also this little clear plastic thing that you rest your fingers on. It keeps your fingers from getting hurt, but it also helps to hold the paper in place when you cut. So I find that with this trimmer, I'm able to cut even the finest little slivers of cardstock. You can either cut at the top of the trimmer or at the bottom. There's a ledge in both places. Now, I will be honest with you. I have always avoided any kind of trimmer with a guillotine feature where there is a large handle with a large blade. I worry about the safety of it since I have kids in my craft room often. And actually my dad, when he was younger, he cut off the tip of his finger with one of those giant blade trimmers. So that's just like a personal preference for me. However, I do feel comfortable with this particular trimmer. I also like how my hand holds onto the arm of this. I just feel like it's compact and quick and easy to use. Now another trimmer that I use often and have for many years is the Fiskars Premium Cut Line Trimmer. Now this one has like a wire that's right where the blade cuts. So when you put paper in this, you will see a wire, and that is where your cut line will be. So you can easily tell where it will cut. Now, I have never had a problem with these trimmers. I've had many over the years, and I used to use them for kitting of hundreds of kits, and I never had a wire tear on me. However, I know that many people have or find that this doesn't cut straight for them. I know Fiskars backs up their product and is really good about that, but it can be frustrating for people when the wire tears or they don't cut straight. I really believe that that has to do with how a person uses a trimmer. My best friend, she uses this and has a lot of trouble with it, but I use the same one and have no trouble at all. And I think it's how we actually cut or pull the blade. So if you liked this trimmer, this overall design, which I think is fantastic and I've talked about in many videos in the past, then there is a newer version out that might be better for you. This is the Fiskars Reinforced Paper Trimmer. So you can see the design of it is very similar to the one that I just showed you that I've loved for years. But this one has that metal trimmer line. So you see that silver metal bar? That's where the blade runs. So you can be sure to get a straight line every time. There's no bowing to this. Now the edge of that metal bar is where the cut happens, so you can easily see where your cut line will be. Now, I like these two particular trimmers a lot because there are measurements over on the right of the cut blade. So if I need something to be exactly 1/4 inch, I can easily measure and cut that. This is like an engineer's dream because you can measure everything very nicely with this trimmer. Now, I personally like the wire trim one, but if you've struggled with it in the past, this one might be an option for you. There's also a blade that actually is dull, so it allows you to score with this too. So if you need a quick scoring tool, this is also good. So there are some positive and negatives of these two trimmers and the Tim Holtz one. So you just need to think about how you use a trimmer. If you liked exact measurements, I'd go for a Fiskars. If you want something that just cuts like butter every time, I'd go for the Tim Holtz. Or if you're crazy like me, you'll find a use for both. Now, I really haven't used this Fiskars reinforced trimmer much in videos because the wire one works great for me. So that's why I've kind of stuck with that. But if you've had trouble with it, this might be a good option for you. Now, you will find that everybody has a different opinion about paper trimmers. So you really need to weigh what is important to you when considering. Now, I thought I'd also share with you the big mama of paper trimmers. This is the Carl Heavy Duty Rotary Trimmer. If you like a rotary trimmer, this is the bad boy of rotary trimmers. I've tried some other crafting rotary trimmers in the past, and I've had problems with them. This one I find to be excellent. Now, I don't use this for my everyday crafting. I like to have something small that I can bring to my desk. But I know many of you out there like to have a large trimmer that's over like in a certain spot in your craft room, and you take your trimming there. Or you want something that is just meaty and will cut perfect every time. This might be a good option for you. Now, this one stays in my office, which is upstairs, and this is what I use to do bulk cutting. This will actually cut through 36 pieces of typing paper, thin paper. So I find it cuts through a few pieces of cardstock at once. Now, one of the great things about this guy is he's rotary. He's going to cut straight every time, and you can put in a replacement blade. Now this, there's really, I think it'd be really difficult to find a way to cut yourself with this trimmer. It feels very safe to me. And what's cool is you see that black arm on there? That black arm can help you to do repeat cutting right at the same measurement every time. I'm going to move that arm to be at 5.5 inches, and then I can cut some cardstock at 5.5 inches perfectly. So I lift this little handle on the bottom, put my paper in, push the handle down to lock it in place, and then I push the blade back and forth. And there you can see that it cut through all that cardstock with no problem. I think that was 3 sheets of 110-pound cardstock. Now this does have that little lock on the bottom that you have to put down every time you cut. At first, this annoyed me, but I very quickly got used to it, and what's great about it is it holds your cardstock in place when you cut, so it will not shift. So you push the handle down, that locks it in place, then you push the blade up and down, and then you unlock it. It seems tedious, but I promise you, once you've used it a few times, it's quick and easy, and boy, does it cut beautifully. So if you like to do bulk cutting, or you just want exact measurements from a really meaty trimmer, this would be an option for you. Okay, so those are a few trimmer options. Hopefully that helps you decide on some good quality trimmers. Next, I want to focus on stamping tools. These are essentials that I find are so very helpful in getting good stamped images every time. Now, of course, the first tool I'm going to mention is the MISTI stamping tool, and I want to talk a little bit about the MISTI. Now, the MISTI comes in 3 sizes. There's the memory size, which is very large and great for scrapbooking, and I don't have that tool. There's the original, which is this size here. That's the one that I use the most, and I would recommend to most stampers. Then there's the mini, which is very handy too. It's a smaller size that I just showed you. Now, I have a few MISTI stamping tools because I use them so often. This is my job, and sometimes I have different projects going on or my kids are using them. I've used the MISTI for a very long time now, and I've bought many because I'm very happy with how it works. Now, if you're going to ask for something for Christmas, I would recommend this. It is a bit of an investment for stamping. However, this has saved me so much time. I stamp so much better. I waste so much less. And there are so many techniques I can do with this tool. That's why I love it so much. I haven't done any of the other stamping tools and videos before because I haven't tried them yet, because I haven't felt a need to switch away from this one. This is comfortable to me and fits my needs, so that's why I've stuck with it. But regardless, any kind of stamping tool is really helpful to have in your craft room. Now there are a few accessories that I like with my MISTI. The MISTI mouse pad insert is very helpful. This is great instead of going through the paper inserts because you can stamp on this and wipe off the ink if you need to. Another thing that I used to do before this mouse pad came out is I would laminate the paper sheets so I could reuse them over and over again. Now if you're using the MISTI with clear stamps, you put this into it. If you're going to use your MISTI with cling stamps, you take that mouse pad out. Now here is the MISTI Bar Magnet. I definitely recommend the bar magnet over the 2 round magnets that come with the MISTI. The 2 round magnets tend to kind of stick to each other and break easily. This bar magnet will hold much better and you only need 1. Now the MISTI has a magnetic base so that you can use this bar magnet to hold paper in place as you do your stamping. Now I'm not going to demonstrate all this in this video, just want to save some time, but I have used the MISTI and the bar magnet many times in many videos, so you can check any of those out to see how you can use this. Now the next accessory is just for fun, and people have asked me about this, about the different colors on the MISTI. You can actually get MISTI stickers, they're pretty inexpensive, and change the color of those grid lines. So the MISTI comes with the pink, but there are white and teal colored grid stickers that you can get to put on your MISTI, so you can change the color or the look if you want to. I do recommend the MISTI Creative Corners. This is a set of these little plastic tools that you can use in your MISTI so that you can get more out of it. So for example, this little L shape you can put in the corner, and this allows you to kind of stamp off the edge a bit if you want to. You can also use it in there so that you can line up things, get things straight. Now, there are a billion ways that you can use these. I mean, it's countless. I mean, I'll be sure to use them more in videos to demonstrate those. But here you can see this would help you to make sure your stamp is straight when you put it in. Lots of ways to use it. There are also the 2 corner pieces that have magnets in it. Now say you want to use a large stamp on this, like a big floral vine, and it hangs off the edges of the cardstock. You can put these in place and it will allow you to have a stamp that kind of hangs off the edge a bit. I also like to use these 2 little corners so that I can stamp better onto a strip of cardstock. So all I need to do is take the cardstock strip and put it between the 2 corners. Then I can put my stamp in there and stamp it repeatedly. This way I can be sure it's straight every time, and I can actually stamp a bunch of strips at once. There are also 2 triangle pieces that will allow you to put paper in your MISTI at an angle. So in case you want to do some sort of angle stamping, you can use that. Again, these can be used together in different ways, just really allows you to get more out of your MISTI stamping tool. Now it's also important to have some good acrylic blocks in your stash. I have a bunch of different blocks that I like. You don't need this many, but I'm going to show you a few options so you can decide what would be best for you. Now the block that I do recommend to everyone, and I use an awful lot, is the Gina K longer acrylic block. You can see it's a very long block. It has measurement lines and grid lines. This is excellent for stamping sentiment straight. So what I like to do is put a sentiment on here. Then I can use it along with the grid on my work surface to make sure I stamp straight. So I line my paper up with the work surface grid. Then I can use the grid lines on my block to line up with the grid lines on my work surface to make sure that I'm straight. That's why I like that it's extra long. So there's some of the block hanging off the edges of my cardstock, so I can make sure I'm lining it up. This is a great acrylic block to have in your stash. Gina K has many different size acrylic blocks that are excellent, and they have the grid lines, which are great for making sure everything is straight. Now another line of great acrylic blocks are the Catherine Pooler acrylic blocks. These come in a few sizes. Now what's excellent about these is not only does it have the indentations on the side for your fingers to hold on to, but the corner edges of these are rounded, so the edges don't push into your fingertips when you grab the block. Now if you're like me and you use a block a lot to stamp, this can be a really good thing. There are also the grid lines, which help to make sure that everything is stamped straight. I do like acrylic blocks that are thicker like this, so that I don't get my fingers in the ink pad when I ink up my stamp. Now another block I've been using a lot lately and people have asked about is the Studio Katia round acrylic block. This is just really handy because you can put a stamp on here, grab it in any direction, rotate it, use it any way you want. Very handy. It does have 2 grid lines, so you can use it to make sure things are straight. But this one is good if you're like repeat stamping on a background. It's just very handy. Simon Says Stamp has great acrylic blocks also that have these indentations on the side. No matter how you grab this, you have a place for your fingers to hold on nicely. And they just fit in your hands nicely. There are a couple different sizes. This is the smaller one, and there are grid lines on it. So these are the different blocks that I use. You probably have seen different ones in videos. Generally, I just grab the one that best suits the needs of whatever I'm doing. Now, you may have noticed that my acrylic blocks are a little bit dirty, so I thought I would take advantage of that and show you the Hero Arts Ultra Clean Stamp Cleaner. This is the spray cleaner that I use to clean all of my stamps. Now, I don't always clean my stamps, but when I need them to be cleaned so I can use a different ink color, this is the best cleaner. The reason I like it is it's safe for both cling, clear, and rubber stamps. It's also great for cleaning up your acrylic blocks when they get kind of icky. If they get adhesive on them, any kind of ink stains, just spray this on. Rub it in. I actually use a baby wipe to rub it in, and then I dry it with a dry cloth. And that way you can have crystal clear acrylic blocks every time. So again, this is the cleaner that I use for my stamps also. Okay, now for everyday stamp cleaning, I recommend the Lawn Fawn Stamp Shammy. Now I haven't been using it in videos lately because, to be honest with you, I couldn't find mine when I moved. So I finally remembered to order another one, and that's what you see here. And I've started to use it again. This is a fantastic tool for quickly wiping off your stamps to clean them as you're working. Now the way this comes is it comes like it's dried out and hard. You run it under water, it becomes soft, and it is excellent for wiping off your stamps. Now this guy will get stained, as you see here, but it'll still work great. You can just clean it by running it under water or adding some dish soap to it and really working it through. Now there are a few different storage options for this chamois. I like to have a container for my chamois because as I'm working, I like to put the chamois back in the container so that I don't accidentally set it on like maybe a piece of paper I need and get that wet and ruin it. So I think it's good to have some sort of storage. However, you don't want a storage container that seals completely because it will get kind of stinky. You could just leave this to set overnight. It will harden by the next day, but all you have to do is run it underwater to use it again. But I like to make it last a little bit longer before it dries out. So I use a couple different containers that I recommend. This is the one that I like the best, but unfortunately, it's really hard to find. I think they discontinued it. It's meant to hold salt in the kitchen. And if you look, there's a little crack around the lip, so it's not completely sealed off, so it doesn't get stinky in here. I like that I can easily grab it and go when I'm creating, and I don't have to worry about messing anything up on my desk. I also keep it in here overnight. Now, since this guy is hard to find, I did do a little bit of research to find some other options, and I thought I would share those with you. There are 2 other options that I would recommend. This one I've been using for a while too. It is a salt cellar, and you can put your chamois in there and notice that you can leave it cracked so it doesn't get stinky, but it doesn't dry out as fast in this. What I like to do is just open it up, spray it with a water bottle to keep it kind of moist and ready to go. So this is a handy little container. You can set it in there as you're creating also. So this is another good option. Now, if you want something a little bit bigger that's easier to get the chamois in and out, here's another one. This is a salt box. You can see there are some very large open areas, so it does keep it from getting stinky in here, but still slows it from drying out. So those are a couple different options for keeping your chamois safe, but you really could use anything you have in your stash. I just wouldn't recommend sealing it up completely. I do also sometimes use wipes to clean my stamps. The Kirkland brand baby wipes are definitely my favorite. These are fantastic wipes. I've used these for many, many years. I get them at Costco or on Amazon. Now there's no alcohol in these and they don't leave fuzzies behind when I clean my stamps, so I find them handy. Now I will use one till the bitter end. I have found that they're very strong, so I can use one a lot. Sometimes even when they dry out, I'll mist them with water and I can keep using them. They really hold up nicely. Now I also do use that same microfiber cloth that I mentioned earlier to wipe off my stamps or to clean them very quickly. You could spray this with water to clean stamps, but I usually use it dry, sometimes along with my chamois or with a baby wipe. Okay, the last category of tools I'm going to cover is for die cutting. I'm going to actually start by sharing with you a few different die cut machines that I like. There's no need to have multiple die cut machines, but I'm going to show you the ones that I've tried and liked so that if you are looking for a new machine, you can see if any of these work for you. A lot of this is personal preference or what your needs are, so I'm going to show you what I like about each. Now the one that I've used the most this year is the Sizzix Big Shot Express. This is an electric machine. I like electric machines. It has a little button that feeds the plates through the machine. It does a beautiful job cutting. I have not had problems with it. I like that you can kind of change the plates so that you can use it for different things, such as embossing folders or embossing mats, or you can put a shim in if you have intricate dies. Now I will tell you, this guy is really hard to find these days. I think it's because Sizzix stopped selling it for a bit so they could change the design, and it's coming back out in January. So just stay tuned if you are interested in this machine. I also like the Sizzix Vagabond. That's a great machine. I used it for a few years, but it's too tall for the drawer that I have in my new craft room. I keep this guy in a drawer and I just pull it out when I need to use it. So that's why I switched from the Vagabond to the Big Shot Express. However, the Vagabond works just as well. I think they're both great machines. Now this has the multi-purpose platform, so you can easily switch between the needs that you have for crafting, for like embossing folders and such. Almost all my videos showcase this die cut machine, so you can watch any of them to see it in action. Now, as you know, with a die cutting machine, there are cutting plates, and these wear over time. I have found that the Sizzix cutting plates last a very long time. I keep one on the bottom that I always cut my dies into, and one that's clean on the top, so I don't leave marks on my paper. But you can get replacement plates. They sell them separately in pairs, and I really recommend having an extra pair on hand so that if you find your plate is just worn a bit too much, you can always switch it over. I keep that top plate clean, and then when that bottom one gets a little too ragged, I'll take my top plate and use that on the bottom and put a fresh new plate on top. Another thing that I recommend with the Express Big Shot is the memory box metal adapter plate. I just almost always have this underneath my bottom cutting plate to add a little bit more pressure, and that helps to get better cutting with your dies. You don't have to have that, but for my particular machine, I just find it very useful, but you'll want to test yours out. There's one more accessory that I would recommend with this machine or the regular non-electric Big Shot, which is a great machine too, and that is the Spellbinders Embossing Mat. This is a little brown pad that you can use in your machine to make an impression with dies or stencils. So I switched my multi-purpose platform to be on tab 1. I put down a cutting plate, then this mat, then my cardstock, and then a die on top. Put the cutting plate on that and I run it through. Because I have that embossing mat underneath the cardstock, it will make an impression in my paper. The die will impress into my paper or emboss into it instead of cutting through it. So this takes your die cut machine and allows you to make impressions or embossing with it. So it's a great way to get more out of your dies and your die cutting machine. This is an inexpensive accessory that I can't recommend enough, and I've used it in many technique videos over the years. Now another machine that I've been using lately is the Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cut machine. This comes in a larger version, but I think the size 6 is great. This is a very compact machine. If you're tight on space, this is a good one for you. You can see how it folds up nicely. All you have to do is pull the sides down and it works like a normal die cut machine. I have found great die cutting with this. The pressure seems to be very even. It really performs well. There's a little handle here so you can take it on the go too. Now this comes with all the plates that you need for die cutting. It even comes with one of those embossing mats so that you can make impressions with your dies. Now again, this is a manual turn, so all you have to do is crank that little crank on the side and it feeds everything through, and it die cuts quite nicely. And again, all the plates you need are along with it. I've been using this in some videos lately simply because I like to show different options, but I do usually choose an electric machine just because that's my preference, and I'm usually multitasking when I craft, so I can grab a sip of coffee or clean a stamp while my machine is running. Now there is this Tim Holtz Sidekick die cutting machine that I have been using a lot lately. I take this one on the go with me quite often, and it now lives on my desk. So whenever I want to cut something small, like a small sentiment, I can just grab this and use it very quickly. Now it's got this lever on the top here that you flip, and what it does is it suctions down onto your work surface so it won't move as you feed your dies through. There are these tiny little cutting plates. They're so cute, perfect for little sentiment dies. You put your paper and die between them and run it through. Now this machine also comes with a few other accessories, but this is the meat of it. This is what you need to do simple die cutting. You can see how easy it is to turn this and run it through your machine, and it seems to cut beautifully every time. I haven't had a problem yet. So if you're looking for something small that can sit on your desk, this is definitely fun to have. There's one more machine that I really feel you should consider if you're looking for a new machine. This is the Gemini die cut machine. This is the original large size. It's big and it's meaty and it's wonderful. There is a smaller version available. It's called the Gemini Junior, and I've ordered it and I'm looking forward to trying it out. It's basically the same functions but in a smaller size. This one you can actually feed 8.5 by 11 paper through. Now, the reason I am loving this machine is it's completely electric, so it automatically feeds the plates through. You don't have to push a button to make it happen. So you can definitely multitask with this. Also, the plates are big, so you can lay down a bunch of dies, put a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper over it, and run it through. I tend to do a lot of die cutting, so this is a great feature for me. Now also, this gives such even pressure. I have found that when I put the most intricate dies in here, even multiple dies, it'll cut through the cardstock beautifully. The machine comes with a bunch of different plates that allows you to kind of change things up depending on what you're trying to cut through. I've heard of people cutting through things like cork and such. I haven't tried anything besides cardstock yet, but it really has worked well for me. I'm using this one to do all the die cutting for my Christmas cards, and I've been very happy with the results. Now, I think I probably will be using this one a lot more in videos, but I haven't yet because it's kind of hard to get right now. The demand is very high, but I do know that more are shipping to stores soon, so you should be able to find one very soon, and I'll keep you in touch with that in my videos. So I showed you a few different machines. These are all fantastic machines and give great results. You just want to think about the different features to figure out what might be best for you. But I would recommend any of these. Now there are a few accessories that I would recommend no matter what machine you may have. One is the Tim Holtz Craft Pick. This is like a paper piercer that is perfect for poking in the holes in the back of wafer thins dies to eject the little pieces of paper that are inside or the die cut. I like this one because the piercer retracts, so you can make sure that it's safekeeping when not in use. Been using one of these for years, and it really is a great tool to have and very inexpensive. Now, if you use wafer thin dies, you probably have noticed that sometimes the dies come connected by little pieces of metal. That's just how the manufacturers do it. Well, you need a good wire cutter to cut these apart. I recommend the Your Next Stamp wire cutters. These are fantastic. They have a nice fine point and cut through those little pieces of metal nicely. Now you want to make sure you cut those tiny little pieces of metal off completely. What I do is I put my die right up against a baby wipe, and I cut right up against it so that the tiny little pieces of metal are caught in the baby wipe. Those little suckers can go flying when you cut them, so you want to make sure that you just capture them right away and throw that baby wipe away. You could also use a paper towel, but I find that the baby wipe catches it nicely. Okay, I also highly recommend Micropore Tape. This is a very thin tape that tears very easily. and it is really handy for holding dies in place on your paper before you run them through the machine. I find that it doesn't tear my paper, and it doesn't leave indentations, which I used to get with washi tape. This is inexpensive, it lasts quite a while, a piece can be used over and over again. I really like Micropore Tape for all my crafting, but especially for die cutting. Okay, so there you have it, my favorite crafting tools from this year. Boy, that was long. I apologize for that. I think I need to go get some tea for my throat from talking so much. If you are interested in these supplies, I do link them below, but go over to my blog for more sources and more information. I have discount codes there and giveaways, so I will provide a link for that. Also in the middle here are a couple other videos that might be interesting to you for you to check out. I appreciate you spending time with me. I'll be back with more favorite crafting tools soon. Take care and have a good week.